The coronavirus pandemic affecting city and county budgets across our communities and indeed the state and nation. What programs could potentially be impacted? We welcome Palm Beach County Commissioner Melissa McKinlay, who represents District 6, which encompasses Glades communities. And she's also taking on a new role as incoming president of the Florida Association of Counties. How will that new role amplify your ability to represent the Glades community? You're a fierce advocate for them, and also the larger context of how it will enable the ongoing fight and blueprint for how we deal with coronavirus.
That's a good question, Michael. In terms of being able to elevate the issues in the Glades, most of Florida, about 87% of Florida is rural. So being able to form those relationships with our rural counties that are struggling with the same issues that we struggle with in the Glades, it's a tremendous value to be in this leadership role and to be able to engage in those communities and those partners to elevate the need for investment in our rural communities.
Talk about some of the specific issues unique perhaps to our rural communities.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're dealing with, farm worker housing, with the urban encroachment on our agricultural, production areas. I think we've learned in this virus of being able to domestically grow our own produce is paramount to food security and to national security, and trying to find that balance between urban and rural life in Florida is something we're going to struggle with as Florida continues to grow.
Talk about COVID's impact on the rural communities as well. It's been an outsized impact in some ways, has it not?
Yeah, there's multiple reasons I believe for that. But if you were to pull up the zip code, the data map by zip code right now, and you look at where those red spots are happening, two of the biggest red spots in Florida right now are Belglade and Immokalee. I don't think I need to paint the picture of the similarities in between those two communities. They're agricultural, they're farm worker based. We're struggling. We got to get resources in there. We've got to change the way we do messaging, change the way we do outreach into those communities to be able to help them. I think the other issue, we see such low numbers coming out of our rural counties in terms of positive tests and the number of deaths. They just don't have the same level of testing, and I worry that we may be missing cases that otherwise would be found in our urban areas where the intensity of the testing seems to be focused. We need to change that focus and put that into our rural communities too.
Commissioner, again, as the incoming president, Florida Association of Counties, one of the things that you and your colleagues will grapple with is the budget worries that are coming with coronavirus and the looming budget crisis because of a sudden huge reduction in tax receipts. Talk about, as a Palm Beach County Commissioner, as we look at a little larger picture, the budget worries you have for the upcoming year for this county, what it may mean for services. And are we looking at potential cuts even in basic services like law enforcement and fire? What are the kind of critical decisions that are going to have to be made? What are the concerns you have?
Well, I think anybody who believes that that's not going to happen has their head in the sand. You just have to look at the revenue estimates for the last 2 months in the state of Florida. $880 million lost revenue last month, about $700 million lost the month before that. We depend on those state partnerships for a lot of the funding that we get. Our sales tax revenues are going down. We're looking at a 30 to 40% reduction this year alone in our tourist taxes. It's going to have a tremendous impact on our budget. We're going to have to relook at the way we provide services, the way we run local government. We can't look. The state's sitting on $4.5 billion right now in federal funding. They haven't figured out how to spend. We don't have that luxury. We've got to figure out how to maintain daily services. You can't pause the flushing your toilet. You can't pause, dialing 911. So we've got to take a look at the budget impacts very seriously, very closely. It's going to be tremendous to local government.
Will your vote be to hold the line on any cuts to basic services like law enforcement, fire, or is everything to some extent have to be on the table? What specifically, as you look at areas that you're going to have to target, are your biggest concerns?
You know, those frontline services, you know, the actual men and women who get on the trucks, who get into those police cars, you know, who patrol our streets, who are responding to those 911 calls. That's not on the table for me for cutting. Now, would there be opportunities in the administration for that? Yes. Are we maybe having to look at reducing the amount of programs we offer through our Parks and Recs department, the hours that our libraries are open, those types of services, I think for all counties in Florida are going to have to be looked at. For all of our cities are going to have to be looking at the same thing. Right now, I don't think is the time to cut back on law enforcement or emergency medical response services.
But it's going to be a tough budget cycle that you're looking at in the coming months. There's no doubt about that. As we look at coronavirus and the reopening and where we stand now, are you generally comfortable with where Palm Beach County is in terms of the cautious reopening right now? What's kind of your overview?
I go to sleep every night with a lot of uneasiness. It's a precarious position we were put in. Look, I don't think we opened. Let me say that again. We opened faster than what I was comfortable with, but it was a necessity. I've had too many emails and families saying, I don't have a paycheck coming next week. Unemployment's not coming. I'm not getting any help from the federal government like I was promised. At some point, you've got to say, I can't force these families to stay home and to stay unemployed and to not be able to provide food to their families, to keep the lights on, to keep the water running. We had to let families go back to work, unfortunately, because of the failures that we've seen in the state unemployment system and the amount of funding for those 3P loans at the federal level. It just simply wasn't enough. And for that reason, people needed to be able to go back to work.
Commissioner, very brief closing comment. You had an opportunity to perhaps throw your hat in the ring for Florida Senate District 29, and yet you declined. Why?
You know, I was actually asked to run for Congressional District 18 as well. You know,
state and congressional opportunities.
It's humbling to have your name thrown in the ring because people believe in the leadership that you're providing. I've got too many things I want to accomplish in my last 2 years on the county commission, particularly for the Glades community. Not ready to leave yet. I made a promise that I would stay until I was termed out, and fulfilling that promise. And just local government to me is the best place to be right now because we're actually able to get things done.
Commissioner McKinlay, we appreciate your time. We'll look forward to having you back. We know many challenges ahead. Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. Take care and be safe.
And in her upcoming role as president of the Florida Association of Counties, Commissioner McKinlay says she'll create an ad hoc committee dealing with coronavirus response and relief, and is asking fellow Commissioner Mac Bernard to chair that committee. We'll be back in a moment.